Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to Shloka Day. Today's Shloka is Shloka number 5 of chapter 13. Rishibhir bahudha geetam
Rishibhir bahudha gedam
Chandobhir vividhaih prithak
Dhobir vividhai pradak
Brahma sutra padaischaiva
Brahma sutra padachaiva
Hetumadbhir vinischitaih.
Tumadbhir vinishchidaihi.
Word for word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Rishibhihi,
Rishibhihi,
by the wise sages.
by the wise sages.
Bahudha,
Bahudha,
in many ways.
in many ways.
Geetam,
Geetam,
described. Chandobhihi,
Chandobhihi,
by Vedic hymns.
by Vedic hymns.
Vividhaihi,
Vividhaihi,
various.
Prithak,
Variously.
Brahma
Sutra,
of
the Vedanta. Padaihi,
by
the aphorisms.
By the aphorisms.
Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Hetumadbhihi, with cause and effect. Vinischitaihi, certain. Translation: that knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta-sutra. With all reasoning as to cause and effect. Prabhupada writes, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the highest authority in explaining this knowledge. Still, as a matter of course, learned scholars and standard authorities always give evidence from previous authorities. Which means if you are providing knowledge, then you are always attributing that to another Acharya. Krishna is explaining this most controversial point regarding the duality and non-duality of the soul and the supersoul by referring to a scripture, the Vedanta, which is accepted as authority. So in our culture, there are dual philosophies, and within those philosophies, there are sub-philosophies, especially in the Dvaita philosophy. There are different types of Dvaita philosophy. There is also the Advaita philosophy. So who gets to settle the matter as to which philosophy is right? Well, Prabhupada is writing, we have to go back to the Vedanta-sutra, which was composed by Vyasadeva. As far as the sages are concerned, besides himself, Vyasadeva, the author of Vedanta-sutra, is a great sage. And in the Vedanta-sutra, duality is perfectly explained. And Vyasadeva's father, Parashara, is also a great sage. And he writes in his books of religiosity, Aham Tvam Chatathanye. We, you, I, and the various other living entities are all transcendental, although in material bodies. Now we are fallen into the ways of the three modes of material nature, according to our different karma. As such, some are on higher levels and some are in lower nature. The higher and lower natures exist due to ignorance and are being manifested in an infinite number of living entities. But the supersoul, which is infallible, is uncontaminated by the three qualities of nature and is transcendental. Similarly, in the original Vedas, a distinction between the soul, the supersoul, and the body is made, especially in the Katha Upanishad. There are many great sages who have explained this, and Parashara is considered principal among them. The word Chandobihi refers to the various Vedic literatures. The Taittiriya Upanishad, for example, which is a branch of the Yajurveda, describes nature, the living entity, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated, Kshetra is the field of activities, and there are two kinds of Kshetrajna. Kshetra means, as we discussed yesterday, this body that's coming into contact with Prakriti. Kshetrajna means the knower of the body. And there are two knowers of the body, the individual living entity and the supreme living entity. As stated in the Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahma Pucham Pratishtha, there is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord's energy known as Annamaya, dependence upon food for existence. This is a materialistic realization of the Supreme. So Prabhupada is referring to this Annamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya, finally leading to Anandamaya. So gradually your levels of consciousness can be raised. For those who are on the lower levels of consciousness, just the presence of food itself suggests that there is a higher being who is supplying you with this food. Then in Pranamaya, after realizing the supreme absolute truth in food, one can realize the absolute truth in the living symptoms or life forms. So food is subsistence. Without food, you cannot live. Then you'll think about what is life. So life is being exhibited in various ways, not just by the human beings, but other forms of life as well. So you realize that there is something in this life that is acting according to its own desires. So from there, you go to Jnanamaya. In Jnanamaya, realization extends beyond the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. The fact that this Jivatma has the potency to think, feel, and act. After this, there is Vijnanamaya, which is called Brahman realization, in which the living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. So first you may think, okay, I am this thought, I am this feeling. Finally, you realize you are actually Brahman. You are spirit soul. The next and supreme stage is Anandamaya, realization of the all blissful nature. So from Annamaya to Pranamaya to Jnanamaya to Vijnanamaya, finally culminating in Anandamaya. That this soul in its original state is Satchidananda. Thus, there are 5 stages of Brahman realization, which are called Brahma Pucham. Out of these, the first 3, Annamaya, Pranamaya, and Jnanamaya, involve the field of activities of the living entities. Transcendental to all these fields of activities is the Supreme Lord, who is called Anandamaya. The Vedanta-sutra also describes the Supreme by saying, Anandamayo Bhyasat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is by nature full of joy. To enjoy his transcendental bliss, he expands into Vijnanamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya, and Annamaya. In the field of activities, the living entity is considered to be the enjoyer, and different from him is the Anandamaya. That means that if the living entity decides to enjoy in dovetailing himself with the Anandamaya, then he becomes perfect. Which means if the living entity desires to serve the Supreme Lord, then he is situated in the Anandamaya realization of the Brahma Pucham. Prabhupada writes, such a person is most perfect. This is the real picture of the Supreme Lord as the supreme knower of the field, the living entity as the subordinate knower, and the nature of the field of activities. One has to search for this truth in the Vedanta-sutra or Brahma-sutra. It is mentioned here that the codes of the Brahma-sutra are very nicely arranged according to cause and effect. Some of the sutras or aphorisms are Naviyad Ashrutehe, Nathma Shrutehe, and Paratuchatshrutehe. The first aphorism indicates the field of activities. The second indicates the living entity. And the third indicates the Supreme Lord, the summum bonum among all the manifestations of various entities. As we said, the 13th chapter is the most difficult chapter to understand in the Bhagavad Gita because it's very technical. It really talks and introduces you to Sankhya philosophy. So His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu writes, the idea of obeying someone often seems repellent to the contemporary mind. I can think for myself, why should I obey anyone? This repulsion to obedience seems all the more justified in the religious field, where terrorists, in the name of obeying scripture, attack innocent people. But in fairness to religion, the secular field has also seen fanatics like Hitler's Nazis or Stalin's communists, who, in the name of obeying the ideology of their leaders, have killed innocent people in millions. So, whether you believe in religion or don't believe in religion, we've had fanatics on both sides. Some people have used religion to kill others, and some people have used irreligion also to kill others. So the actual problem is not religion or even obedience, but blind obedience, be it of religious or secular dogmas. So blindly following someone or whether they are on the spiritual path or whether they are on the non-spiritual side, both of that we have to be careful of. Why do some people become blind followers? One reason is that they want to avoid the responsibility of thinking about and choosing their own actions. How beautifully written. You become blind when you're lazy, when you don't want your brain and intelligence to be actively engaged in ideas. Some such intellectually irresponsible people seek the easy way out by following faithful seeming religious zealots who, though swearing by an ancient book, interpret it to suit their own purposes. So this is how Prabhupada used to say, if you want to get cheated, there are many cheaters who are pretending to be sannyasis or great devotees. Other intellectually responsible people obey secular leaders who promise that their godless ideologies will solve all problems. So there are two extremes. There are religious fanatics and then there are secular fanatics, both of whom don't believe in thinking for themselves, questioning things. Our Vedic culture is meant to question. Our entire scriptures are exactly in question and answer format. That shows that questioning is accepted, is actually necessary to grow spiritually. The Bhagavad Gita doesn't subscribe to such an ethos of intellectual irresponsibility. Its presentation of multiple options for spiritual advancements, its sober and sensitive response to intelligent questions, its carefully reasoned arguments to substantiate its concluding call for devotional activism as the best pathway to individual and global well-being. All these set the scene for obedience that is not blind but visionary. So, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is explaining how the Lord Himself has given so many different ways for us to come back to Him. That means, with the fact that the Lord has given you different options, means He is giving you the free will to think through which option you want to follow. Therefore, He doesn't expect you to be blindly following his instructions. He wants you to carefully consider the different options he's given you and select the one that best suits you. So it's not obedience by being blind, it's obedience by using your own intelligence. The basis of this visionary obedience is Krishna's extraordinary example. Despite being not just Arjuna's guru, but also God himself, he doesn't demand obedience merely on the authority of his position. So Krishna doesn't say, I am Bhagavan, you have to follow my instructions. Never once in the Bhagavad Gita you hear the Lord saying, because I am the Supreme Lord, I am demanding and commanding that you obey me, Arjuna. He quotes scripture. Even in the shloka, Krishna is saying, great sages have said this, Vedic scriptures have said this. He is not even taking personal credit that he is the one who transmitted the Vedic scriptures to Brahma and from there on to Narada Muni and from there on to Vyasadeva. He quotes scripture and past saintly teachers, both Shastra and Sadhu, to substantiate his message. Even though he is a Supreme Lord, he doesn't need ordinary mortals to substantiate what he's saying. Yet the Lord, time again in the Bhagavad Gita, talks about great sages. The tripartite foundation, tripartite means the foundation based on three pillars: Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, for our thinking makes our obedience visionary. Therefore, you have three different ways in which to triangulate the truth. The truth is the truth. So you can look at it from the perspective of what the Guru is saying, from what the devotees are saying, and from what Shastra is saying. I can think for myself. That's why I choose to obey Krishna. So even though the Lord has given you free will, where you can do whatever you want, you utilize your free will to willingly obey the Lord. So that is what we aspire for even in the path of bhakti. So this Sankhya Yoga is about duality, non-duality. It's about Kshetra, Kshetragya. It's about Purusha, Prakriti. It's about Jnana, it is about Jnana. So all of this, we are expected to use our intelligence to try our best to understand. Philosophically, it may not be easy, but still we should make an effort.
If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification. If you'd like to join our classes every day, please check the details in the description section of this video. We look forward to serving you.